The state income tax is a domestic income tax form. It's whatever happens within the state. If that's the true nature of an income tax in the state, then what is that for the federal jurisdiction? I'm going to read one thing. The United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to the state, and that's Volume 20, Corpus Juris Secundum, Section 1785. So what is that federal income tax? It's international income tax form. How do you find yourself in international law? That's the law of the high seas, either admiralty or maritime. Admiralty being the contract on the high seas in a time of war, maritime contract on the high seas in a time of peace.
And that's why they always redeclare emergencies every year, is to keep that going.
Absolutely. Well, here's the bottom line. The Federal Reserve is a foreign corporation. It is the creditor to the United States. And in Title 12, Section 411, it says that the Federal Reserve notes are obligations of the United States. That means the United States, the debtor, the Federal Reserve is the creditor. Now let's put ourselves in the picture. Well, let's go right to the ports of entry. Every time a merchant brings in merchandise into this country, there's a duty put on that merchandise, isn't there? And he's working under international law. Well, I just described that the Federal Reserve is a foreign corporation. It is the creditor of the United States. When you import a Federal Reserve note into your household, you now become a merchant, subject to international law, having to pay a duty on those products. And I heard that once. I heard the Federal Reserve call their merchandise products. Now, you're importing and exporting every month, importing the Federal Reserve into your household through your bank account, negotiating checks, what have you, and you export them out when you pay your PG&E, water bill, and everything else. That is the basis of income tax law. And if you read the Huntress, it'll tell you that revenue, and I probably should read it, it says, in this country, revenue causes had long been the subject of admiralty cognizance, that the Congress considered them as civil causes of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction. And to preclude any doubt that might arise, carefully added the clause, including, etc. This is clear proof that Congress considered these words to be used in the sense they bore. And the point is that all income tax is revenue. Revenue is income tax. It's foreign.
Well, that's why England calls their tax, the Inland Revenue System. Stay there. We'll be right back. Long segment coming up with our guest to continue breaking it down. We've only got one segment left with Ron Mcdonald, author of They Own It All, Including You, By Means of Toxic Currency. And I want to walk through this now in the 17 minutes or so we have, Ron, and get into the fact that they own you as well. And they hide this in plain view. That's why they call us human resources. That's why the globalists openly say there's too many of us. We're a negative asset. They want to get rid of us. So first there's the process of takeover and domestication. Now there is the ongoing wars, the starvation. That's in State Department Memorandum 200, that they want to reduce world population. Please continue breaking it down, all covered in the book. They Own It All, Including You, available at Infowars.com.
Well, definitely. And the bottom line with using those notes, and most of your listeners already know this, is that they're debtor's instruments. They do not pay off. They actually discharge debt from one to another to another. They give no title, rights, and interest in anything that you purchase, so everything that you have does not belong to you. When your wife gives birth to your child, you actually pay the hospital with these Federal Reserve notes. That lien travels all the way through, right onto the baby's head, because that is the nature of what currency and what money is. It is the qualities within these instruments that flow through to the very thing that is purchased. Now, going back to the jurisdiction, considering what jurisdiction we're in, most of us think that we're in the common law jurisdiction. Probably not your listeners, but most Americans do. If you ask them, is that Federal Reserve note the money of the United States, they say, certainly. They don't know that it is not domestic currency. They have no idea it's foreign currency. It would be like if we were to import Japanese yen right over here right now and fill our entire system with Japanese yen, American people would be up in arms. But because they call it a Federal Reserve note, no one is aware that it's a foreign product not owned by the United States, not owned by you. It's owned by the Federal Reserve. And I guarantee you, if you try and take out 10,000 or more Federal Reserve out of this country, you've broken the law if you don't declare it. Or if you pay your property tax with them over 10,000, there's a red flag that goes up. Or if you put more than 10,000 at a bank, there's a red flag that goes up.
And let's briefly talk about that. What's happening here is we think of the dollar as the world reserve currency. That's not a greenback, a U.S. government-issued fiat. That is a private Federal Reserve fiat. And so when we hear about the dollar crisis worldwide, that's a fiat private banker crisis. They're using this system to control the world as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's in every country. It doesn't matter the nature of the currency. None of it is backed by a commodity that the people themselves own. And that's the one thing that people's eyes should be focused on. Do you actually own that you're using? Well, no, you don't. And again, there was a quote in the New Testament that says, "None shall buy nor sell without the mark of the beast." Well, you have to consider that the mark of the beast is invisible. It has to be invisible. It would be the very nature of money. And when you examine that prophecy, it is a commercial prophecy, isn't it? Buying and selling is commerce. So you would have to look into that jurisdiction to see where that mark of the beast is. Well, here it is. It's right out there in the open. It is a lien that travels all the way around. There's not one product, not one service in this country that isn't now liened. They own it all, including you, because we exist purely by means of this toxic currency.
So he makes all take it, both free, both slave, great, small, everyone uses it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether you believe or don't believe in a religion or not. This is a commercial prophecy. It merely is the law of as far-reaching as Babylon itself. It's the merchant law. That's all it is. But when we go through society, there's something that one should be aware of. Being in common law meant the law of the land came and arose from the land itself. That's the law of the land is common law. That's why it's stated like that. But when you're driving down, or let's say you go to register a vehicle, you'll see it from the DMV. You'll be given a form, and it'll say vehicle /vessel. Well, that backslash means equality. That means they mean the same thing. Well, that should be your first clue that the jurisdictions are mixed right there. The land or the sea is mixed right on there. But are they? When you're driving down the highway in your car, do you not pass islands in the middle of the street? Are there painted islands? Are there raised islands? And what about those lanes called shipping lanes? Do you see the truck going down there with the cargo? And when that truck goes back and starts delivering its cargo, it backs up into a bay, which could be in the middle of a state, no water around, and unloads the cargo onto the dock. And what does the driver do? He hands over a bill of lading. Now, if you were to find the bill of lading, you can look in a law dictionary, and it'll say, for goods on a vessel. Now, did they confuse the terminology there? If you were to look up weighs bill, if he had a weighs bill, it would be goods on land. You see the nature where we are right now?
But let me back up what you're saying here, because I've read the SPP documents that Judicial Watch sued and got. I've studied the inland ports at Kansas City and Dallas, Texas, and other areas. They admit that that's what the NAFTA superhighways are international jurisdiction taxation lanes and corridors that they admit is the international takeover of our country. So this is all actually admitted.
Yeah, and it's like I said, with the merchant law, highways were lanes, shipping lanes on the high seas. And back in the 50s, they changed all roads, all boulevards, all avenues into highways. And you have to ask why did they do that? Because what they did was bring into the system the Admiralty Maritime or the commerce jurisdiction. And even your previous commercial says we'll ship anywhere, ship. If you go to the post office after you leave, it says thank you for your shipping, and you may have just mailed a letter across to a neighbor for a birthday. How are you involved in shipping when you're on the land?
And that's how the feds have the postal laws, and this is all admitted. That's what's incredible. When you go to court, it's all that Roman law, praying to the court in your pleadings. It's all there in front of everyone, the ancient merchant law, and any good lawyer knows this, and it's supplanting the common law.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been separated from our common law, and the only way a man can defend is through his common law. That's where he actually gets his alienable rights and everything else. But when you put out to sea, then you have all the laws, all the immunities, all the privileges come from the admiral. And that's where we are right now, and that's why we're in regulatory law. And everything is regulated. If you go through society, just count the things that you cannot do without permission. You cannot go through the intersection when it has to stop there without permission. You can't get into your car unless you have a license. You can't build a house unless you have a permit. You can't get married unless you have a license. You know, it is unbelievable how restrained Americans are, and they think they have liberty. It's not there.
And now we're entering an intensification in this phase where they are really expanding this international private corporate jurisdiction with their admirals, Janet Napolitano, the regional governor, the 10 governors over the 10 FEMA regions, the government in the John Warner Defense Authorization Act, admitting there's a takeover. You have these cities within a city. You have London, the city of London within London, who admittedly is its own private corporate sovereign land. You have the Vatican, that's its own private corporate sovereign land, and set up the EU. You have the Washington, D.C., this command base, this district of the Admiralty. And what's incredible is you read globalist reports that are public. This is common knowledge to them, but you tell the general public this. You tell a state police officer that they're really a Admiralty agent and an enforcer of an offshore bank, they can't even understand you. But it's absolute fact.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I'll give you an example. Here in the state of California, where I am, they have two codes in the government codes. One is 6850, and I'll quote it. It says, the money of accounts of this state is the dollar, the cent, and the mill. Well, they're referring back to the weight of gold or silver. That's what the money of accounts of California is. But it also says in 6852, it says all legal tender notes issued by the United States, and I emphasize issued by the United States, shall be received at par in payment for all taxes due this state or to any county or municipal corporation of this state. Now understand, it says issued by the United States. Is the Federal Reserve note issued by the United States? It's issued to the United States from the Federal Reserve. There is no law in the state of California, and I've researched them all the codes and statutes, that says they have a right to accept Federal Reserve notes or foreign product into this state. See, that's a crucial point, and that's in every state.
And that's how they expand the Commerce Clause way outside its jurisdiction, is because when your state starts accepting that private product, you, through contract, are consenting to it. Just like they say, hey, when you try to fly, we're allowed to stick our hands down your pants and radiate you because you consented.
You're absolutely on point. That's the bottom line. When you go and you're hired by an employer, you agree to accept Federal Reserve notes, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever it is. You've agreed to it, but...
And they have the minimum wage law, which then allows them to control individuals contracting with each other. They're taking over every facet of society, including the family, which they admit is their main target.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And as far as do we own property, here it is right here in Senate document number 43, Senate Resolution 62, page 9, paragraph 2, April 17th, 1933, same year that we went off the gold standard. And I quote, the ultimate ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, example, law amounting to mere user. And use must be in accordance with the law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Now, the state is not necessarily your state. It's the creditor is the state in this thing.
And notice when you get software, you are not the owner. You are the user. When you buy a car now, you don't buy it. They hold, as we said earlier, they hold the title. You are the user. We are literally feudal serfs and slaves. All this is a 21st century version of ancient feudalism that was operated the same way in Japan, Babylon, Albion, which is England. It's the same system.